this is what 8 weeks in a van looks like. My makeup's good though, isn't it? Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. This week I will be reviewing This Is Your Tragic Backstory by Sven Stears. It's cold coffee. This Is Your Tragic Backstory came out earlier this year. It is Sven Stears' debut poetry collection and it is published by Whiskey and Beards, which is supported by Arts Council England. But before we go any further, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and comment down below what brought you here. It really helps small creators like me get found. That sweet, sweet engagement. And while we're on the subject, why don't you follow me on social media? I am at Josie Alford Poet on all the things. And if you're interested in seeing what it is like travelling around Europe for 2 months in a van, go ahead and follow me and check out my Instagram. And while we're on the subject, you can support this channel with your money if you appreciate the videos that much. You can buy me a coffee or subscribe to my Patreon, and the links to do both are in the description down below. Thank you very much. So, onwards with the review, shall we? Here's how this review is going to work. I'm going to start with an introduction about the book. I'm going to talk a little bit about Sven. I'm going to talk about my favourite bits that feature throughout the poem and my least favourite features of the collection. And then I'm going to finish on a positive. I'm going to finish on my favourite poems. And then from there, I'm going to talk about who I think might enjoy this book. And yeah, that's the review. So let's go. This Is Your Tragic Backstory is about addiction, recovery, and belonging. Or unbelonging, anyway. Sven is a performance poet, artist and filmmaker. He has won several slams, including most recently the Lyra Poetry Festival slam, which I hosted. He won with 2 poems from this collection as well. At the pub after the show, he asked me if I would review his book, and I said yes. Tragic Backstory digs deep into the lived experience of addiction, trauma, recovery, and ultimately hope. You can actually buy it on the Whiskey and Beers websites for £8, which is a bargain. Like most poetry collections, a full poetry collection normally costs around a tenner or more. So yeah, £8 for a full poetry collection, bargain. It is 72 pages long, which is like, I think, fairly standard for a sort of small first poetry collection. It's definitely bigger than a chapbook. It's definitely a poetry collection. 72 pages, not too hefty. Big fan. I started reading this book on the ferry from Plymouth to Santander, and I got about 2/3 of the way through it. And then I finished off the last bit when I was in Lisbon. All of this is to say that I think you could probably finish it in one go, but I have to admit I found the subject matter kind of hard, so I took a little break and came back to it a few weeks later. The collection is told from the perspective of an alcoholic. Starting with childhood, it covers growing up, becoming a man, if you will, and romantic relationships, and then ultimately ends with an apology. It covers this sort of like need to find belonging. So, here are my favourite bits. There are some really strong images in this collection. My personal favourite is this use of like white noise and static. One of my favourite poems sort of says, you were white noise to me, and that being a positive thing, but now it's just static, and how that like, ooh, yes, nice. There are also moments of an excellent use of multi-rhymes. Now, I know Sven from back in the day, in spoken word scene in Bristol, and he was definitely part of that group of boys who would just sit around and come up with multi-rhymes together. I was always really bad at it, so I don't know whether I didn't enjoy that activity because I was bad at it, or I didn't enjoy that activity because it was actually kind of lame. I don't know. It's probably a bit of both. So, here are the less good bits. I'll be honest, I struggled with the subject matter for this collection. Now, I grew up with an alcoholic father. and that definitely coloured the way I read this book. I wouldn't say this book triggered me. I've been doing the work, doing the healing, whatever. But I would say it definitely coloured my reaction to the speaker's point of view in the collection. Certainly the poems about like romantic relationships, or how the addiction and the alcoholism affected relationships, I read quite cynically. Especially, yeah. I'll leave it at that. That is not to say that I didn't enjoy engaging with the collection, more that I just came in skeptical and found it challenging, which is an okay thing to say about a poetry collection. I think poetry is allowed to challenge you. You can, like, enjoy being challenged by it, and I was. Another thing that I didn't enjoy as much about this collection is I found the poems were kind of sprawling. They were long. There were certain poems which I would read the first page and be like, wow, amazing. Like, what a killer last line. And then I'd turn the page and the poem would go on for 4 more pages. And so I think that this is a symptom sometimes of performance poets, especially poets who are great at slam, which Sven is, get so used to writing a 3-minute poem for performance, which is the rules in the UK. Most slams are only 3 minutes long. You get so used to writing 3-minute poems that when it comes to, you know, taking the step over and releasing a book, that you automatically want to write just your 3-minute poem down on the page. And I don't think that necessarily works, or I don't think it's needed. I think that you can really draw a poem in and down and take it down to its most crystallized essence, and I felt like that wasn't happening with a few of these poems in the collection. Having said all of that, my 2 favourite poems of the entire collection, one was the longest and one was the shortest. So length isn't everything. I don't prefer shorter poems. I just think that if they're longer, they need to, like, be deserving of their length and, like, be able to carry the reader through. So with that in mind, my favourite, the shortest poem in the collection, and one of my favourites, is a poem called Entropy. It's a super tight and controlled poem that compares romantic relationships with the eventual heat death of the universe. And to be honest, who can't relate to that? I wonder if Trey actually watches my reviews. My other favourite poem is the longest one in the collection, which is called Berlin, and it's told in several parts, or cantos, which is what we learnt when we were doing Joelle's video. And it links the reunification of Germany and changes within the country to changes within the speaker's life. Sven was actually born in Münster in Germany before the reunification of Germany, and the poem follows him going back in sort of this quest to find meaning. Personally, I find the history of Germany, specifically through the Cold War, very interesting. My grandparents actually met in Berlin just after the wall went up, and so I enjoy that sort of comparing, like, domestic and family history to these huge historical events. I really enjoyed it. So who do I think would enjoy this? I think people who are interested in masculinity and the presentation of masculinity, as well as addiction and how that is written about or presented. Yeah, I think this poetry collection really explores manhood and identity and how to find meaning and belonging. So anyone who has struggled with that or is interested in that would find this book incredibly interesting. Not to mention, it's chock-a-block full of nostalgic references. So if you are Oh, in your 30s. Yeah, so if you are in your late 20s to like probably like mid 30s, you're probably going to get a lot of these references and you'll really enjoy them. So yeah. Overall, this collection has a self-deprecating tone. It is tender, it is nostalgic, and it has got a dash of gallows humour. So if you want to buy it, you can buy it from the Whiskey and Beards website. And my question to you is have you read this book, and if so, what did you think of it? Can you recommend any other books on the subject of masculinity, alcoholism, addiction that would be worth reading as well while we're talking about it? With that in mind, I just want to chuck in a recommendation for Sam Grudging's collection, The Bible 2. That covers a lot of similar themes, so if you're interested in exploring that subject matter, Sam Grudging's is another great one to look out for. So that's it for this video. Please like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment down below what brought you here, and yes, you can follow me on social media as well. I am at JC Alford Poet, and if you found this review interesting or useful and you want to show your appreciation with your wallet, then you can do so by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. The links to do both are in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next week. Bye!